Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, haven't been out of the house a whole lot in the past couple of weeks edition. I got the scruffy hair, mustache not too terribly well groomed. I did at least shave some. Mowed the lawn today. I had a son. This is a thing. I know I've been talking about this kind of on and offline. I don't recall where exactly anymore that I've specifically said that I was having a kid. But if you're out of the loop, I was having a kid. My wife was pregnant, and I've had the kid. His name is Miles. He's been around for a little while. I actually made a video about him previously, but then the battery in my mic died mid-recording. And when that happens, you can't salvage it. It's weird. It brings up a notification on the mic. It's like, hey, your battery's low. And you could still keep recording, but when it brings up that notification, it stops recording to tell you that. So, I don't know when it stopped recording. I could find out, but I certainly didn't start recording again after the warning. So, yeah, that was garbage. Thought I would salvage it and use the camera audio, but no, that's really actually not very good at all. You can hear the machinery of the camera. It's not a great mic. It's an old camera. A lot of people have phones now that are probably more sophisticated than this camera is. But yeah, I haven't done a video in quite a while. Part of it's been that, I've had a kid coming up on the way and I've been busy with a lot of stuff. And then the other part of it is just that I continued to really dislike YouTube. It's a terrible website. And what can I say? It's really weird if you look now at the Let's Plays and the Personal Times. The Personal Times, I think, are actually getting better, or were getting better viewership than the Let's Plays were. And that's probably just because the Personal Times are longer, and that's kind of how YouTube operates. I shortened down the Let's Plays and didn't use the name of the game to promote them. So YouTube's just like, what's this garbage? 10 minutes only? Garbage. Not having that. Whereas these will get an average of 15 to 20 minutes worth of viewership. But anyway, though, you didn't come to hear me talk about that. You come to hear me talk about my child, my son. And like I say, the hair's all scruffy because however old he is now, I think about 4 weeks coming up, I haven't had a haircut in longer. I've been nervous that if I leave the house, something terrible will happen. So I don't want to do that yet. But anyway, though, the whole pregnancy thing, it's a lot less messy than I thought it would be. Also, raising a child, it's less terrible than I was under the impression that it would be. But it's still stressful in a number of ways. And I'll kind of get into a more grounded view on the whole thing. First up, though, the pregnancy thing was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, or rather the birthing thing. I imagine it would just be messy and terrible. It was painful. But if you listen to the way that maybe our parents, my generation's parents, talked about having kids, back when they were having us, my parents couldn't do an epidural right off the bat because medical technology wasn't as sophisticated as it is today. These days they can give you just the right amount of meds throughout the entire thing, and it's really no big deal. They were just like, yeah, it should be no problem. So in the past you wouldn't get your epidural, but right now, according to Claudia, she recommends getting an epidural from the very start because she had a problem where the baby was what they call stargazing, or my mom referred it to sunny side up, I guess. But babies are supposed to be oriented in a particular position. They're supposed to be, I don't know, facing down or facing up. I'm not sure which way it is, but they're supposed to be head down. If their legs down, that's a breech birth, and that's dangerous. They usually do a C-section for that because the baby, they get their arms and legs in the way and everything like that. It's just a mess. But yeah, he's also supposed to be facing a particular way, and if they're facing the wrong way, then it causes really bad back pain. So Claudia went to the hospital. We woke up at 3:30 a.m., and this was funny because I predicted that the birth would take place. I'd have to get her into the hospital at 4 a.m. I was like, yeah, I don't know why, I just have a gut feeling, 4 a.m. So she wakes me up at 3:30 a.m., and she's having contraction pains. And actually, the way that the contraction stuff works is that you'll start having contraction pains well before the baby is born, days before the baby is ready to be due. It's just that as you get closer to actually having the baby, the pains start coming closer together and they're more intense. So she was having actual pain. At first it's just sort of a tightness. It's really not that bad, but she was having actual pain by 3:30 a.m. She was timing them, and they were all close together. So we got in the car and we calmly drove down to the hospital. You don't have to rush or anything like that. It's a long all-day process. It's not like the baby usually is just gonna come out there on the spot if you don't get down to the hospital right away. So yeah, they even gave us a little handout where they were like, if the baby is due to be born, do not run, do not walk to your car. Come in and just have everything taken care of. Like they were very specific about that. Do not panic. Do not call anyone. Just come on in. So when we got down there, though, it turns out that particular hospital, they don't have the birthing, or the main area was closed at that time of night. So we had to go in through the ER, which we're not really positive about this because the billing is strange, but we think that we got charged a little bit extra because we had to be processed through the ER, which is frustrating. All in all, the entire birth before insurance was like $30,000. So yeah, that's for those of you living in Europe, that's what it's like to be an American without health insurance. This is why our healthcare system is such a mess, or why people are so mad about it all the time. Fortunately, we're not going to be owing quite that much. We have a like a catastrophic cap or whatever, where once they charge us enough money, then the insurance covers the rest of it. I don't know if we hit that cap, but I'm pretty sure we thought we would. So we may have just hit that cap anyway. So whatever our out-of-pocket costs are, I think we've tapped out on that. So yeah. Anyway, though, what they did is they kind of just had us sit in the waiting room in the emergency room, and it was funny because there was another lady there. Well, there was a bunch of people in line, but there was some other lady there, and she was just like, oh, it's probably just Braxton Hicks contractions. And the way she said it, like she was so sure, like she'd seen it 1,000 times. Family coming in, doing all the timing and everything else like that. Braxton Hicks are the contractions that you get before the labors actually do. But yeah, they got us up to the birthing ward and they checked out everything, and it turns out it wasn't Braxton Hicks. She was ready to actually have the baby. So they got Claudia situated in a room. It's kind of a large room, so there's lots of space for everybody to mill around and do things. And that's important because all in all, the entire process took about 13 hours. I predicted, I think about 14. I don't know why I just like the 4 number, but anyway, though, it was a 13-hour process. So being able to get up and stretch your legs a little bit is handy. It's nice. Claudia got there, and at first they asked her, like, well, do you want any painkillers? And she's like, well, I'll just wait and see. And so it wasn't very much longer that she was in really intense pain, and the nurse was trying to help her, like, get through the pain through these various exercises and things like that. It was like, here, try sitting on the ball. Here, try bending over the bed. Have your husband rub your back while the contractions go on. And she was just like, no, too painful. Painkillers, give me painkillers. So they gave her like the first step of painkillers, and this was kind of funny. It was sort of cute because for a little while she was real mellow. Everything was fine. She was just like, she's like, these aren't taking the edge off the pain at all, but I feel like just the right level of drunk. Like, I'm like still in pain, but I feel okay about it. So for a little while she was just really mellow and like happy to be there, but was still in pain apparently. So that was kind of funny. But then it turned out that because our son was facing the wrong way, she started to develop really bad back pain. So once that started to kick in, she was like, okay, epidural, give me the epidural. So they set her up and they put a needle in your spine and start pumping a lot of medicine into your back. And that numbs all the pain through most of it. So through a lot of it, Claudia was a bit loopy. She was a bit out of it and heavily medicated. So I kind of apparently remember more about the day than she does, which I suppose is good because she was the one who did most of the work. Anyway, like my parents came out and I called them first. Her parents were actually there in the house with us, but they kind of dawdled a little bit getting out. My parents arrived first, and it was right as Claudia was suffering a whole lot of pain, so I just wound up making them sit outside and wait, and by the time that we were ready to admit anyone, like it didn't really matter who had gotten there ahead of time. What I was actually hoping for was that someone would show up and like relieve me of duty because I had to go take I've got my thyroid meds I gotta take in the morning, and I left them in the car. So I was like, yeah, I just gotta go run out and like get those meds. But I just want someone to be in the room, I don't want to, like a family member. I don't want to just like run out and have Claudia be alone for even like if it's 5 or 10 minutes. This first baby, I don't know what something goes wrong. So yeah. It didn't matter. By the time that, like I said, she eventually just let everyone in when she was all medicated. And then she was a little bit brighter and more cheery and receptive to everyone being there. And the whole family came out, everyone that lives in the area. That is, Claudia's brother and sister came out there. My sister came out, both my parents, both her parents. And it was pretty exhausting for me. I had bought some books thinking that, pregnancy takes a long time to get through, and that, surely there would be some downtime where I would just like sit down and read and pass the time away. But it never really came. And I never really felt like I was at a point where I was bored. It's certainly not the kind of event where you just like tune it out and you're like, whatever. Because there was always something going on. Like nurses coming in, nurses going out, family members coming in, family members going out, just this and that. One of Claudia's friends showed up with lunch in the form of Lunchables, which I thought was funny. It was kind of an accident. I can't remember why she got us Lunchables, but I think that she asked Claudia what we wanted, and so Claudia was like, bring Lunchables. And so she was like, okay. So Lunchables pizza was my lunch, and it wasn't the best. I kind of went like most of the day without really eating. My parents bought me like a turkey sandwich from a vending machine for dinner, and I didn't really go home and get anything to eat until the next day. One of the things that's interesting about that whole, the hospital that I went to, is it's a more birth-oriented hospital. There's one that was closer to us that we considered going to. But when we looked into it, the one that was close to us, apparently what they do is they're more surgery-oriented. Like all their specialists are like surgeons. So if a woman goes there to give birth, they just cut her open. Which is not really good. Like you read about the US having higher mortality rates. Apparently that's like one good way to raise your mortality rates is if your hospital just cuts women open whenever they have babies. Apparently it's safer to just let them have the baby, but that hospital doesn't have midwives. So we went to a hospital that actually has like a midwife program and specialists who deliver babies, and Claudia didn't need to be cut open or anything like that. It was a fairly normal birth aside from the whole stargazing situation. So Yes. Long story short, son came into the world, the usual methods. Like I say, it was he had a lot of hair. Like it wasn't as messy as I thought it would be. There wasn't really as much blood as I thought there was gonna be. It wasn't as gross as I thought it was gonna be. But he had a lot of hair, and so it was kind of funny. It reminded me of the Super Mario 2 game, where they have like the hair of the turnips that are sticking out, and in that game you would just like grab the hair of the turnips, pull them out, and you like raise them above your head. So like his hair was like sticking out like a tuft of his hair, and I was just like, well, maybe if I just grab that and just pull him on the rest of the way out of there, he'd be good to go. But I guess that's not how you're supposed to do it. It's not how the doctor did it. But they went and they got some equipment just in case they did have to pull on him. They get some, they have like a vacuum or something like that. They'll like to use vacuum suction to stick it to the child's head. Although that can cause damage, so they don't like to use the vacuum. They prefer to just have it be done naturally. But there was a little sewing afterward. Claudia did need to be repaired just a little bit, but for the most part, no worries, which is important because Claudia was actually anemic during the pregnancy. She's always been a little bit like borderline anemic, but apparently being pregnant really drains your body's nutrients and makes those kinds of problems a lot worse. So the doctors were looking at her and they were like, oh, your iron levels are like dropping out rapidly. That's not good. So she had to get these transfusions where they transferred iron directly into her blood. And if it got any worse, I think they were going to have to actually do a blood transfusion where they would swap her blood with someone else's blood. As it was, they just injected iron into her. But there was very little bleeding, which is good. So that was nice. And they kind of had this thing that, like I said, they have all these different little things at this hospital. Like you can do water birthing, you can do this, you can do that. And they were like, do you want to do skin-to-skin contact when the baby's born? And so they got the baby out and they cleaned him up just a little bit and they gave him to Claudia. And they just set him down on top of her so he could start breastfeeding right away, because they will apparently if they're awake. Miles came out screaming and well awake. He indicated that he was alive pretty quickly on in there. And Claudia doesn't even remember that. Like I said, she was so drugged up and so tired by that point. The next day, she was like, oh, I didn't get the skin-to-skin thing. Like, is that bad? Do you think that's going to impact him negatively? And I was like, no, they did that. You held him for like an hour or something like that before they took him again. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah. I mean, like, you were really just, like, zonked out. But, yeah, they let you hold him for a while. She was like, oh, I don't even remember that. So, Yeah, one thing that was funny I thought about him was whenever he cried early on, like their skin's a little bit, it's not like transparent, but their skin is thinner. So when all the blood rushes to their face because they're screaming, they just turn like bright red, like a lobster. So every time he cried, he would just turn like bright red, and that was pretty funny. And then another thing that I learned that I didn't know is that when babies first come out, they poop something. It starts with like a C. I can't remember what it's called, like maybe cholesterol, something like that. I don't remember exactly what the word was. But it's like this black tar, and it's really sticky and it's really disgusting. And there's quite a lot of it. And I thought that he was just gonna poop like that forever. Like that was gonna be, we'd take him home and he'd just have like diapers full of this poop. And I was like, oh man, babies like poop a lot. But apparently that's an early thing. They eventually get all that stuff out of their system. That's something they build up inside themselves while they're in the womb. And once they're clear of all that, they go on to having like normal baby poop, which is not nearly as bad and not nearly as hard to clean, thank goodness. But yeah, first couple of diapers. For the first, I think, day or so, Claudia, I think, we managed to get him home without Claudia having changed a diaper, I believe. I wound up doing it for the most part because she was so tired. I stayed with her overnight. They let me do that. They have like a pull-out bed that's actually a chair. So it's like a poor man's futon. And then they don't feed Dad during that hospital, at least. There's one meal that Dad gets. Like the following day, he gets to have dinner. But if he wants breakfast or lunch, or to be fed at any other time while he's at that hospital, he's got to go someplace and pay for his own meals. You know, like I say, $30,000 doesn't get you much, Dad. Like, go out and buy yourself a Happy Meal. Something like that. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that meal cost me like $100, $200 or whatever, something like that anyway, as it was. It wasn't amazing. They asked what we wanted, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't know. Like, the options were like hamburger, and it was like a steak, and I thought for sure it was going to be a Salisbury steak. But it turns out that if you ordered the steak, they actually cooked up a steak. It wasn't like brilliantly prepared, but it was actually a steak, so I was a little shocked by that. But they only did that for you once. You only got good food the one time. Or Claudia only got good food the one time, and otherwise it was just the cafeteria menu, pretty much. So, Claudia's mom stayed with Claudia the second night. Basically, just let me get a chance to go home and get my sleep. I had to catch up on some stuff, sleep and eat and things like that, because I hadn't really had much of anything for most of the time that I was there. And then eventually I had to come back. I had to go and get the baby seat, put it in the car, which by that point we'd already figured out the baby seat. There were a few tricks to it. It was kind of lucky because sort of towards the end of that pregnancy, there was something that occurred to me. I was like, oh wait, how do I tighten the seat or something like that? And the method is kind of more complicated than you would have given it credit for. So it's good that I thought to try that before we left, because otherwise I would have had a little baby in the back seat and no idea how to get him buckled in there properly. So, yeah, we got him in the back seat, and the car ride was pretty funny because we found out that motion just puts my son to sleep instantly. This is true for most babies. I think it's something about like simulating the womb, I guess. I don't know, but he just passed out in the back of the car. When they're little like that too, his head kind of flopped over the whole way, so we sort of worried about him. We looked into it, and apparently it's not super great when their heads flop over like that. It can restrict their own airways. So when they're really little, they're not great to be in those seats for a long time. You want to wait until they're a little bit bigger. It's safer for them, especially once they can hold their own heads up. But until then, they're a little ridiculous with their head to neck strength. You know, they can't hold themselves up so well. So we got Miles home, and it wasn't too bad to start off with. They kind of get into a bit of a groove. It turns out, you know, it's like they eat every 2 hours. So they eat for 2 hours. They eat for like an hour, and then they fall asleep for like maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 hours if you're lucky. And or you're supposed to feed them every 2 to 3 hours, 1 to 3 hours. Depends. I don't know. Depends on. I mean, really, they wake up and they scream when they're hungry, so you don't get to choose very much about when you're gonna feed him. So. Anyway, though, he would sleep for a couple hours, and we'd get to sleep for a couple of hours, and he'd wake up, and, you don't get like a full night of sleep, so you don't really feel fully rested during the day. but you do at least get some sleep. And early on, Claudia essentially tried to do pure breastfeeding. That was what she wanted to do, pure breastfeeding, because that's supposed to be better for the kid. And it's as hard as people say it is. Like, he was able to breastfeed and Claudia is producing milk, but the problem was that you have to get him to latch just perfectly, or otherwise it really hurts the mom. And the thing about the babies is that they don't understand that they need to latch perfectly. Like, they're not trying to get a system. Like, they're just so greedy. You know, they don't think, they don't care, they just get on there, and however they're sucking the milk out, that's how they're sucking the milk out. Like, there's no concern whatsoever for mom. Mom is a machine as far as the baby is concerned. So Claudia would just be trying and trying and trying to get him to latch, and you know, she soldiered through it for most of a month before she finally just got tired of it. And so now we're kind of alternating between breastfeeding and bottle feeding, and we've also got formula, so that way you know, Claudia gets a bit of a break. And that's been nice because now I can feed him, and that's going to be important because I'm going to be the babysitter going on into the future. So yeah, so far baby's not like loads of fun when they're this little. It takes a while. When they first come out, they can't see anything. They're pretty much blind, so they don't really focus. Like, they look around and they're looking at stuff, but they can see maybe movement, you know. They don't really make out shapes very well. They can't tell what's going on. At this stage, he's actually looking at me, and occasionally we get like reactive smiles. Like, if I stand over him and I talk and I'm being friendly, he'll smile at me. I was trying to get him to say hello today, and he was babbling back at me, you know. It was kind of funny because there's just this sort of like, it was cute. Like, I was trying to teach him how to talk, and I was like explaining phonemes to him. And there's this, like, for a little while he was just like happy, and, you know, like, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually there was a sort of like dawning look of confusion on him. And then I kind of lost his attention. I don't know what it was. Like, he just got to where he's like, I don't know. Okay. Couldn't do it anymore. So sooner or later, though, he'll learn how to speak. I've been watching, shoot, what is it? Inuyasha, while I feed him, because I burned through all of my Netflix stuff. What I was doing is whenever he had to eat, because he fusses while he eats, I would pull up Breaking Bad, and I hadn't watched all of Breaking Bad, so I was watching Breaking Bad while he eats. And you know, you burn through that stuff a lot faster than you imagine you might when you're, you know, watching a new episode every 2 hours or so. Like, every 2 hours, just I watch another episode of Breaking Bad. So I'm done with Breaking Bad now. I'm also done with Better Call Saul, and we finished BoJack Horseman. So, you know, now I'm on Inuyasha because I saw that was recommended, and so now whenever he eats, it's Inuyasha. But fortunately, his feeding times are spreading out a little bit. He now eats like every 3-4 hours, I guess, and he eats more in one sitting. So sleep is more merciful, and gradually that whole thing is getting better. But the flip side of that is that, you know, while he goes longer with his feedings, he's also awake more often. And he cries if you're not holding him, which I'm not sure how I'm going to do work when Claudia goes back to her job, because I'll be the only one at home. And I'm going to have to hold him unless he falls asleep. So I have like a little baby carrier that I can carry him in, but that's not like guaranteed. He won't settle down unless I'm walking around and holding him. He likes the motion to be part of the equation. Or he's good if I'm like talking to him, I guess, you know, if I'm paying real close attention to him, but it's very attention demanding. So yeah. As far as the whole business stuff goes, like, I'm gonna keep going with Steve and everything. I've got the next comic planned out on that. Or I'm working on it right now, and I'm continuing to work on it. I think I'll still be able to get at least one page done every week, no problem. As far as the Let's Plays go, that's a little bit more difficult, because what I would normally do in the past is sit down and record that over the span of like several hours, because I would do the recording ahead of time, and that's fine. That, like, the visual recordings would be fine, because that's just me playing the game, which I can pause and then edit out the pausing or whatever. But with the actual vocals, since it's like 3 characters all talking to each other, I would record the vocals for a while, do some editing, put stuff together, do recording, cleaning, so on and so forth. And if I have Miles in the room with me, he'll wake up if I start shouting. So if I have these characters screaming at each other, Peyton doing a lot of lines, I'll wake him up, and then when he wakes up, he makes noises, like all kinds of different noises. So there's no way that I'm gonna get really clean recordings while I'm looking after Miles or while he's in the room. Even if he goes to sleep, if I shout, he'll wake up. So I don't know for sure what I'm gonna do with the Let's Plays. I know that there are fans of the Let's Plays, but at the same time, like, it's YouTube, and I've grown to kind of despise the company for what they do to people. I mean, at this point, I'm convinced that YouTube is functionally just a sweatshop. My take on them is that what they're looking for is to run an ad farm. They just want to farm out as many ads as possible, and they don't really care who's doing it or what or why, so long as it doesn't draw undue scrutiny to the platform. Like, they're happy just so long as you're producing a lot of it. And what this creates is this sort of like race to the bottom, where it's like, okay, so everyone is making the fastest video that they can that's still just barely good enough to maintain an audience. And if everyone's doing that, you have tons and tons of content, and that like devalues the content because there's so much of it. It's like there's more content being uploaded to YouTube than any human could ever imagine watching. So the whole idea of like, all right, like YouTube is just promoting spam, and then I'm somehow expecting them to parse through the spam and find like the best spam and give it to people. Like, they're never gonna do that. Like, and I don't think that's really ever gonna be their priority at the rate that they're going. It's not on the horizon for them. They're mostly just gonna prioritize whoever they can run the most ads from. And if you get some outside viewership from somewhere that promotes you up, then they'll just run with it. They don't care. So yeah, I mean, like, the Let's Play channel is probably not going to get any bigger than it already is. If anything, it's just going to shrink. Same personal time, similar deal. I think it gets promoted sometimes when I talk about other subjects. Like, I notice if I talk about controversial things or certain pop culture things, it gets spread around more because YouTube recommends me to people. But it's like personal times are long. They run a lot of ads, and so YouTube prefers that kind of, this kind of content. But it was never the kind of content that I really wanted to do. I don't mind doing it, and I enjoy that you guys enjoy it. But I wanted to do entertaining stories, but like fictional stories. Not make my life into a show. I'm happy to talk about my own son, but I don't. I don't want to have to like get up every single day and tell you a new, the minutia of my life. What did I have for breakfast? What do I think about the news today? I think it's terrible. The world's going downhill. We're all gonna die. Just assume whenever you read the news that I have a bleak view. I have a very dim view on whatever happened. Mad. You can be mad too. Not because I necessarily am, but just because I know that would produce better views on YouTube if I'm upset. If I'm upset about things. So, it's been good. It's been interesting. We've done a couple of things. Claudia's mom spent the first 2 weeks with us, helping us look after Miles, and that was really nice because she was really eager to spend time with him. When you've only got 2 weeks, it's easy to put in your time and be really enthusiastic about it. So she helped cook for us. She helped clean up a bit and all kinds of things. So that was great. I think that for single parents, this has got to be really difficult. Like, when you hear about raising kids just being absolute hell, I think that's got to be like single parent working 2 jobs. Like, raising a child on top of that has got to be nearly impossible. Like, the stress has got to be just unbearable. But when you're looking at like happy couple working together, especially with one's like a stay-at-home dad, and then you've got like maternity leave for the other, and then like grandma comes out and she's looking at it too. It's really not so bad. It's been good so far. It's been a decent experience. I don't know if I'm super eager to have the next one or anything like that. We probably, we've kind of had it in the plan to have more kids down the line, but I do got to admit, like I say, I probably remember the whole birthing process better than Claudia does from what it sounds like, but I still feel guilty about it. It seemed really painful, and I felt really bad that I was responsible for this. It's scary, you feel this is your partner, this is your closest friend, and she's in a lot of pain. So, I don't know, maybe I'll adjust spend some more time just getting comfortable, and that's okay. There's no rush. I had a couple of years between my sister and Claudia's siblings. I had a couple of years between all of them, so it's not like you have to immediately run out and have another child. But yeah, let's see. I guess other than rants about like how do I feel about the future and the politics and where are we all going, thinking a little bit more about schools and money and everything. Like all this tax stuff kind of seems more significant because now we have to think about like, if we're not earning enough money, we've got to go to a lower income area. But if we do that, the schools won't be as good. And like the healthcare thing is going to be really expensive. And so budget stuff is always a big concern. We're kind of worried about that. Also, this whole thing with like college, where like right now you need $500,000 if you want to go out of state. Like we need to save up a lot of money to send Miles to college based on the way things are going, because the price of college is inflating so fast. And I don't know, I just think about like if I had to go back to college for myself right now, I'm not really sure what I'd want to spend all that cash going to learn. Like engineering is a good kind of thing, but like what would I really want to go and be educated to do if I had to choose to go and do that again? I enjoy all this art stuff. I really enjoy this creative stuff. And so for as long as I can do that, I'd like to keep doing it. We haven't had anyone leave the Patreon in a couple of weeks, I think. I don't know. Time has been slipping away from me, so I'm a little foggy on that. But, we've had some rough patches and we've kind of been tumbling, but people have been sticking it out, and I really appreciate you guys helping us out. And like I say, one of the things that we've discussed, Claudia and I have discussed, is that daycare is really expensive. So as long as the Patreon situation works out to where I can help with things and I make myself cheaper than daycare, it's still preferable to have me at home looking after our son, because, we save money that way. And plus, like, I'm one of the parents, so it's not like we've got strangers looking after our kids. The only scandal we have to worry about is something that I perpetrate, which I'm sure you guys will know about it because it'll go up on YouTube, because it'll be a brilliant idea I have for a show idea. I've sworn, I've promised I'm never going to get my kid really involved in YouTube. I'm a little bit disgusted by a lot of the stuff that has done well on the site in that vein. So, anyway, so I'm going to keep at the creative stuff. I really enjoy the creative stuff. And it's still working out, so I appreciate you guys who have been with us and have been sticking with us, and who really like the content, who've been following the stuff that I've been doing, regardless of the changes and everything that's been going on. I don't know, there's not a whole lot else to say. I kind of wish there was. I wish I could tell you, like, he's starting to walk, or he's starting to laugh. Apparently he's giggled a couple of times. Claudia says that he's giggled, and I think I've heard it once, but it doesn't really sound like a hearty chuckle. It sounds kind of more like a weird stuttering, like he's not crying. He's not crying, but it's some kind of like stuttering baby noise. I don't know. He's still learning how to laugh, so... It starts off and there's not like a lot of positive feedback with the baby. It's all about negative feedback early on. It's like, I gotta stop the crying. I have to make the crying stop. But the smile is pretty cute. I had a pretty good time. Got a really great... I won't gush about the times that I got smiles. Those were good. Trust me, it's like a light in a dark tunnel. It's like, a happy thing. Positive feedback. A reward for being a parent. Wow. That's good. It's also good that does happen, The first 4 weeks have really blown by. Not sleeping as much really does prevent you from feeling the time, so it doesn't feel as long as it's been. Yeah. So, I guess that'll be it for now. Thanks for joining me, everybody. You guys have a great day.